Shabbat Shalom. I was once over the summer in a European city, and I was in a park, and I saw young people attaching one rope to one tree, another side of a rope to the other tree. They made a tightrope. They started to walk across it. And I remember watching them and seeing the rope jingle up and down, but somehow they managed to keep their balance. I remember being amazed. Did not look easy, wondering how did they do it? We look at our world today, and it feels a little bit like that. Ukraine, such a challenging situation. How do you support their independence? How do you support their military, their freedom, their dire fight that they're in without getting involved into a nuclear war? And in this nation, how does every person fight for the causes that they believe in with all their might, while also trying to be a realist and to understand that we are a wide and diverse nation? And in Israel, always preparing for war, always being ready for peace all the time. In our own lives, caring for the people we love while also taking care of our own selves, finding our way through all of it. And perhaps one can look at the world, at every balancing act, every negotiation, every attempt to bring divergent parts of ourselves, of our world together, all the competing needs and values in our hearts and our minds and our souls. All the world is on a tightrope. Can feel pretty impossible, the rope jangling up and down. And how do we each continue in our way? And on each side, when you look down, there looks like there's a void. We don't want to fall off the rope. Challenging situation. It's an interesting part of our parsha that relates to this theme. About Bilam the sorcerer. All right, at first, the king Moab, King Balak of Moab, who's an enemy of Israel, tries to hire the famous sorcerer, the false prophet Bilam, to curse the traveling children of Israel. But God appears to Bilam in a dream and says, do not go curse the children of Israel. Do not go with the king's men. So he tells them, I cannot go. But then they return with even more dignitaries. And God speaks to him again and says, you can't go, Bilam. But then eventually God relents and says, you can go, but you must do exactly, precisely what I tell you to do. So Bilam has been given permission to go to the children of Israel and to follow the men. So he goes with God's permission. But strangely, just as he's leaving, God appears to him and says, I'm really angry with you that you're going. So Bilam tells the king's men, he says, well, Balak may be hiring me to curse Israel, but I can only say the words that God puts in my mouth. So what is it? Is he a sorcerer for hire, or is he a prophet? Can he go or can he not go? And which way can he go? What exactly can he go? How much room does he have to maneuver? Almost none. Is he himself a good man or is he an evil man? And what can he say to the children of Israel or not say? As you read the story, it's striking how that limitation only extends itself as he travels on this impossible mission. He's riding on his donkey, and suddenly the donkey starts going off the path. This has been his donkey his whole life. His donkey's never done this, so he's surprised, doesn't know what to do. But the Torah tells us the donkey saw there was a divine being ahead of him. But Bilam did not see the divine. The donkey does not obey, and he starts beating his donkey because he's so furious. And the donkey starts talking to him and says, well, why are you beating me? Have I not been a good donkey to you all these years? And Bilam does not understand what is going on in this whole perplexing situation. His own donkey is not obeying him and going off the road. And so finally, Bilam sees an angel with a big sword about to strike him, and he bows low. And the angel says, why have you beaten your ass 3 times? It is I who came out as an adversary, for the errand is obnoxious to me. And when the ass saw me, she shied away because of me those 3 times. But if she had not shied away from me, you are the one I should have killed while sparing her. And so Bilam said to the messenger of God, I made a mistake because I did not know that you were standing in my way. If you still disapprove, I will turn back. Then the messenger of the Lord says to Bilam, no, go with the men, but you must say nothing except what I tell you. And so he goes. So is he allowed to go or not go? What is he supposed to do? His path is so narrow, he could not deviate. He had to go, but he couldn't curse. He had to follow the king. Despite the king being powerful too, what could happen to him? His own donkey was taking him amiss. But then as he approaches the Israelites, all of this strangeness disappears. As he prepares a ceremony, suddenly he's taken up in this beautiful divine blessing. And these words just flow out of his mouth, beautiful words of blessing, of poetry that we still put on top of our bimas thousands of years later. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov. Clearly in some prophetic state, divine effulgence. And he realized at that moment he was on a mission, a unique moment, but maybe not so unique. As Rabbi Nachman says, Kol haolam kulo gesher tzar me'od ve'ikar lo lefached klal. All the world is a narrow bridge, and the essence is not to be afraid. Right? All of life is a narrow bridge to our destination. And also, it is a nature of the 3 weeks that we begin today, tomorrow, on the 17th of Tammuz, leading us to the Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, our day when all the calamities of Jewish history happened. Because how many times as Jews have we been on that narrow road between destruction and survival, feeling the void on each side of us, wondering how are we going to make it? And the 17th of Tammuz recalls the sieges on the ancient temple in Jerusalem. According to some traditions of both temples, the walls were breached on this day. And for over a year, they'd been in the straits, the siege, what's going to happen, would the Babylonians leave or stay, would the food last? All of the world is a narrow bridge. And maybe this period between the straits is even more than about some national occurrence. It's about all those places where each of us feel that our lives are so narrow, that our ability to maneuver is so small, and that we feel that we're trying to just go ahead as best we can between one side or the other. And we all have those periods in our life where we feel that narrowness, and we're just trying to balance all the different factors, joys and sadnesses and freedoms and responsibilities, all the people in our lives and their needs and what they're going through, going for months, for years, all of it. The world is a narrow bridge in so many ways. And yet, the lesson of the 3 weeks of this whole period, of this narrowness, is also that is precisely when we're in the narrowness, that when we're in Ben HaMitzarim, that we know that the universe and the God is with us. V'ha'ikar, as Rabbi Nachman says, in the essence is not to be afraid. Because just as Jerusalem was being destroyed, God was with them. As the Midrash says, crying for what was happening. And God went with them into exile, Begalute. Through all of it, we were not alone. And precisely when the bridge is at its very narrowest on Tisha B'Av, is when we believe the Mashiach, that the greatest hope is born, a new life, a new peace that we cannot even imagine. So when Bilam was on this mission, and his ability to walk forward was so narrow, could he go this way, could he go that way? But at the same time, the divine was so unmistakably present with him, guiding him, telling him, you can go this way, but you can't go this way, guiding him through that narrow path and how difficult that was. And every movement, every word was watched over and being communicated to him. There were even divine beings with swords telling him, no, you went the wrong way. This is the way you need to go. And it was hard, but yet it was also so very blessed. It was also so very beautiful, because he was walking on this divine bridge, knowing he was doing the bidding of his highest self. And then finally, as he approached to finally fulfill this mission at the end of this narrow bridge, suddenly everything shifted and this completely different ecstatic state came. Instead of cursing, he blessed, and blessings just came through him, and he himself was taking into the presence. And at that moment, what did he care anymore about curses or blessings, about the riches he was about to receive? He was just doing his part, playing his mission, doing what he needed to do in this world. Kol ha'olam kulo, all of the world. It is a narrow world at the moment. Perhaps it's narrower now than it's been in such a very long time. Pandemic, war, violence, strife in this nation, in the whole world. But perhaps we can also find some comfort by having faith that the universe and God have also never been closer. That the way forward may be narrow, but they will also birth us into a new self, because we're being watched over as we head into this new and important destination that we cannot even yet imagine where it will be. For our nations, for ourselves as individuals, as families. And it may take 3 weeks as this period, or it may take 3 years or longer, but we must keep finding that faith. On the other side is new life. On the other side is blessing. The ha'ikar and the essence is not to be afraid. Shabbat Shalom.